Every week, it seems, some act of terrorism makes it into the headlines. England, France, the Middle East. But Colorado? Yes. Years ago, there was a terror organization with roots in Denver, Buena Vista, and Colorado Springs. It was planning and doing terrible things. And chances are you've never heard about it. Tonight, a KRDO News Channel 13 exclusive, Terror in the Rocky Mountains. Here, just above 8,000 feet, it's peaceful. But these mountains have a story to tell, one that's far from the serenity here now.
At position number 2, looking down the hill at the ul-Fuqra camp.
Trout Creek Pass, not far from Buena Vista. More than 25 years ago, this was the site of the Jamaat ul-Fuqra terrorist training camp.
Somebody over there. Keep an eye on them for me. I'm recording all this down here.
Dozens who belonged to the radical Islamic sect lived and trained here, but they were secretly being watched by law enforcement for years.
And they were seen as being suspicious.
Retired Lieutenant William Lidd is with the Colorado Springs Police Department.
I was in the police department's intelligence unit.
It was 1989, years before the compound was uncovered. Suspicious activity was reported at this storage unit.
They hadn't paid rent on it in the past several weeks or months.
It was more than just suspicious.
Turns out to be full of explosives.
Powder, wires, cartridges, circuit boards.
Bombs were ready to go. A bunch of stuff that was really pretty concerning.
Not only that, a dozen handguns and
a bunch of stuff written in English, which talks about jihad and waging a holy war.
It was terrorism before we knew what terrorism was, before the World Trade Center bombings, before 9/11.
None of the atrocities that all of us as Americans are familiar with had happened yet.
And yet there was evidence. Whoever owned this locker already waged that holy war. Several packets found inside the storage locker detailed how to firebomb this Hare Krishna temple in Denver.
It had indeed been firebombed back in 1984.
It was written before the bombing, but someone kept the plans, storing them away. There were also plans to kill this man, Rashad Khalifa, an imam at a mosque in Tucson, Arizona. He was warned.
And he wasn't overly concerned about it. And that's unfortunate because about 5 months later he got killed in almost exactly the same way as described in this targeting packet.
The packets also included targets, Buckley Air Force Base and the Air Force Academy. And more paperwork, lots of it, with the name James D. Williams. He and others filed countless workers' compensation claims, scamming the state out of $355,000, claiming on-the-job injuries.
Injuries occurred while they were training at the terrorist training camp.
Susan Finger, a retired investigator with the Department of Labor and Employment, ultimately sniffed out the fake claims.
They had used the fraudulent income to purchase 101 acres near Trout Creek Pass.
Since her investigation, she's had to change her name. She doesn't want her face shown because of death threats from ul-Fuqra. This man, Sheikh Mubarak Ali Gilani, was the mastermind. He founded ul-Fuqra in the U.S. in 1980, establishing 24 compounds across the U.S. He also has ties to one of the most infamous terrorists, Osama bin Laden.
A living threat to the Western civilization.
The Trout Creek training compound was isolated by design, just as Gilani instructed. But in 1992, investigators busted the 100-acre compound. They found men, women, and children schooled in the ways of terrorism, how to kill, how to target. AK-47s, M16s, 40,000 rounds of ammo stashed inside old mine shafts. Radios tuned to Pakistan to get orders from Gilani.
25 years later, this land just outside Buena Vista has changed hands several times. The property owners are now different, but vestiges of its dark past remain. The trailer where those children slept and where they were trained in how to kill.
The guard tower is gone, as are many of the other buildings that used to be part of this compound. This isolated mountain ground back to its original hush. But where is the group now? And what about the people found here? Those questions linger. We set out in search of the ul-Fuqra members to answer that. Join us tomorrow night in part 2 of Terror in the Rocky Mountains on KRDO News Channel 13 at 5 and 10 o'clock. Their goal was to cleanse and restore Islam to its original purity. To do that, followers belonging to the ul-Fuqra radical Islamic sect were instructed in ways to kill. Many of those followers lived right here in southern Colorado. Last night, we told you about a firebombing in Denver, a storage locker in Colorado Springs full of bombs, elaborate workers' comp claims that allowed members to buy land for a terrorist training camp near Buena Vista. All of it tied back to one group. Tonight, in part 2 of Terror in the Rocky Mountains, we investigate where are the people of the ul-Fuqra Islamic terror sect now. His name, Sheikh Mubarak Ali Gilani. He organized the radical Islamic sect ul-Fuqra from Pakistan. He was smart, trained in that country's version of the CIA, but his reach was wide here in the States.
Gilani indoctrinated a lot of his followers through the prisons.
That's the voice of Susan Finger, a retired investigator with the Department of Labor who's had to go underground since the case. She says ul-Fuqra put a hitch on her life. How dangerous was this group?
Very dangerous.
It took years to piece together Sheikh Gilani's underground network that, at its height, boasted 3,000 members. Dozens of those terrorists in training lived here just outside Buena Vista 25 years ago.
The grounds have since changed. New buildings have sprouted under new ownership, but its past tells a dark history. KRDO News Channel 13 obtained these photos from the Attorney General's office. They tell part of the chilling story. Men, women, children trained in how to kill who hid dozens of weapons.
They used my case as a training vehicle to show how to put a terrorism case together.
After the raid, it was reported most members left. But where are they now after they were labeled armed and dangerous? The Colorado Attorney General could not tell us or even if they track where the members are, nor could the FBI. Gilani would be 81 now. He's said to last be living in Pakistan. Only one of the men associated with the Colorado group remains in prison. Others are out, having only been convicted of racketeering crimes. Only this man, James D. Williams, the Colorado ringleader, remains in a Colorado prison. He declined our repeated requests for an interview and is eligible for parole in 9 years. And that doesn't account for the dozens of others who lived to kill.
They're out there.
Knowing the group's past, retired Lieutenant William Lidd says it's not surprising that, given their history, some have returned to it.
It's important that people know about some of these things. They're going to continue with whatever mission it is that they, whatever warped ideology they think that they're pursuing.
A group that shows strength to this day. And despite being suspected of more than 13 firebombings and at least that number of murders in the U.S., ul-Fuqra has never been designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the Colorado Attorney General, Fuqra's academic arm, the Quranic Open University in Los Angeles, has received more than $1.5 million for charter school funding. You might remember American journalist Daniel Pearl was beheaded in Pakistan attempting to interview Sheikh Gilani.